little bit extra caffeine, some sugar, woken back up. Excited for our next session here. The whole conversation around going from reactive to proactive, which is obviously aligned to protecting revenue to helping grow revenue. And so we have Patrick Shields here who's going to share us his story about that and journey and some ideas on how we can implement that into our own organizations. So join us. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, they always say dress for the job you want. So Sean, I'm coming
There
for
you
you. Cool. Anybody else nervous? Good, me neither. Hey everyone, Patrick Shields. I work for Informa. I'm the Director of Customer Success. I live in San Diego, so all you local Bay Area people, yes, I know you are jealous. Today I want to talk to you over the next 30-ish minutes or so about how we transformed our customer success team from a reactive customer support model to a proactive success model, why we did it, and the immediate results. I need to grab the clicker. Oh, I also want to add too, everyone mentioned that they really love bad jokes, so I have a secret surprise for you in a couple slides. So if you're not familiar with Informa, Informa is a leading international events, digital services, academic research group. You might be more familiar with the brands that we do run. As I showed some of the logos here. My group specifically works on the tech events shows within Informa. So I have 15 customer success specialists across the US, London, and Malaysia, and we're about 2,800 plus accounts. We run our support not within the models that Mary had mentioned, but more based on the products. So different customer success specialists will work on the products and then work within those brands. So as mentioned before, we had a reactive customer support model. And I'm not here to say that that wasn't good. I mean, we were responding to our customers, we were delivering what they had purchased, and our CSAT scores were decent. You know, nobody was really asking for more. But there were two very glaring issues that I'll get into. And I knew this firsthand. I joined the company as a customer success specialist. I moved up to a customer success manager and then became the director. So I was very familiar with how our support system had cracks in it. So just to set the stage, we had a shared Outlook inbox, which is how we would have our alias that customers would email into. We would set reminder emails as primary outreach. So it was really transactional relationship. You know, hey, you owe this, and just send it in and answering any questions that came from the customer. We did set up a customer portal, really static. I mean, if you ask us, we knew the portal so well because we set it up, so we knew that all the resources they need were in there. They actually didn't need to email us at all. All the info was in there. But why were they still emailing us? It was not searchable. They couldn't figure out how to find the answers they were looking for. So what that led to was customers only reached out to our team when they were frustrated. Nobody emailed us and said, hey, I found it, thanks. You know, is that something we can relate to? You know, and why would they, you know? Nobody goes to online, you know, does any online shopping and says, hey, like, I bought the shoes, thanks for the great service. You know, like, it's just, so we're only getting negative emails. That actually has a lot to do with the psyche of our team members. We had no visibility into the evolving needs of our customers. Point of sale sometimes was a year in advance. So we didn't know if they had changing needs going after that, going into the shows. That also led to, we didn't have any upsell opportunities. I mean, we're supposed to be these partners, these strategic partners with these customers, and we didn't know if their goals had changed. We didn't know if maybe they wanted something different. The negativity, the constant firefighting, reactivity on the back foot, it just led to team burnout. You know, people didn't really feel like they owned their role. They felt like they were task managers for internal and external stakeholders. So we needed to fix that. And I think across the business, products are getting so similar. I mean, there's the competitive advantage everywhere, but I think the competitive advantage that we can all strive for is a better customer experience. If we can make it easy for our customers, if we can make it a very seamless experience, then we can really show that as our competitive advantage. So I knew how to change the narrative. I identified 2 key areas. We needed to retain our employees, and we needed to retain our customers. Pretty easy to do, right? But you can't do it without employee retention. If you spend so much time on training our employees to just bring them up to speed, and year after year, hiring and training, our customers can see no value from these people, from our team members, because they don't know the event, they don't know the customer. So we needed to make sure that our employees were empowered and staying along with us. We also were great at getting new customers. That's why we were able to still grow. We were not so great at keeping them. It became an option to be at our shows rather than something they needed to be at. And so we needed to build that loyalty, and we needed to give them a strategic partner to make sure they were more successful at our shows and needed to be there the following year. So the idea that I came up with was that if we can improve our processes and improve our team culture, we're going to get more engaged employees. I think Jack mentioned it, we needed to, and I'm such a millennial manager, we need to really focus on culture here. So let's get employee engagement, let's get ownership within our roles, and what that's going to lead to is better success from our customers. And when they get better success, they're going to come along, they're going to stay with us, and so we're going to get retention for both our employees and our customers. So in thinking about any sort of change management, you have to consider all of the different possibilities and all of the different contingencies that you have to plan for. So, the first thing that pops into mind, right, is Murphy's Law. We all know what Murphy's Law is, right? If it can go wrong, it will go wrong. But does anybody know about Cole's Law? It's thinly sliced lettuce with mayonnaise. All right, now that the bad joke is over, we can move on. And definitely take that to your kids, because that kills with my 1-year-old who laughs at everything I do. So what we did is we focused on 3 pillars. We focused on culture. We needed to create a culture of excellence within our customer success team members. One of the best things, I was just listening to the Customer Success podcast. As with a 1-year-old who doesn't love to sleep, podcast became my best friend. And somebody said that we, as customer success, are not feel-good managers. We're customer success managers. And we can't act like we're a friend after a bad date and just make sure that they're happy. We need to be a coach, a personal trainer, somebody that's like, I know you're not going to love this, but you're going to be good. And that's what really matters. So getting obsessed with our customer success was a big culture shift that we needed to make. We needed to also utilize our technologies to enable our customer success team members to have more time, giving them time back to provide high impact, valuable customer-focused activities. And honestly, in some cases, just having time back to relax, recharge themselves, and be a better, more engaged customer service specialist. We need to refine our processes. This one was about building habits towards proactivity. So before it was a lot of reactive, waiting for things to come in. So we put in key touch points within the customer experience that was going to kind of force, but build that habit of proactivity within our team members. So looking at building a culture of success. Previously, we were focusing on delivery, so then we needed to shift that to a commercial mindset. We needed to link every activity that we were doing to business impact. We were a partner, not a task manager. And having that mindset of just listening to our customers and trying to identify, I'm not just here to make sure you got what you paid for. I'm here that you got the most out of what you paid for. And sometimes that leads into additional sales right there. We had KPIs on reactive activities. We kept those, but we added proactive activity KPIs. So building the habits, building the metrics, everyone's aligned based on what their performance looks like and building towards that proactivity. I didn't mention yet, but this was a setup as a customer support team. So they were good at emails, good at managing projects, but they didn't have the consultative selling and they didn't have that personalized communication training. As Mary mentioned, it was the same. And then this is me 10 years ago too. I can't do sales. I'm thinking the greasy car salesman, and just trying to convince the person to get, and that's not at all what sales is. And in fact, just like Mary said, the best salespeople don't do that. It's consultative selling. It's offering the product when it makes sense for the customer, not just when we want it. We use technology to enable our success. So we went from that shared Outlook inbox, and this is not going to be a product pitch for Freshdesk, but we use Freshdesk. And the ticketing system really helped us, gave us the data I needed so I can get an overview when there's high volume times in a process that I can bring in other specialists to come in and support, allowing the experts on the event to spend more time on high impact activities. We were able to do automations, see data. That actually helped with our hiring too, so I can actually see, like Outlook wasn't giving me data on this, so it actually helped with the hiring conversation of look at the amount of tickets that we're getting in, that we're responding to. We're able to see the rate at which people are responding. And another really key indicator there was how many emails we were sending to resolve an initial ticket. So when a ticket comes in, the ideal is that it's just one email, getting rid of that thing. But when we start to see that there's 1 to 5 emails to do one ticket, okay, we need to look into why there's so much back and forth. We're trying to get rid of that back and forth as best as possible. Time spent on low impact support, just collecting deliverables, things that can be automated. I mean, the point of that was just we need to be able to, why are we copying and pasting things? We have automation set up, there's forms, there's different technologies we can use that just send things straight away, notify team members, set up approvals, those kind of things. So we're saving different times within the process. We're also, through Freshdesk, able to add FAQ responses. And just recently, this is where the AI does come in, that we are able to use their email bot to start answering some of those frequently asked questions, more on that low impact, simple things. And then we had limited customer feedback, so we needed to find a way to quickly and do that at scale. When we look at a show, it could be one customer success person for 400 customers. And they all want something different. Some people want a high touch approach, and some people just want a checklist that says what to do. So we needed to get that feedback. We needed to use it to upskill or adapt our training and our onboarding for them, but then also look for different opportunities so we can reach out and say, hey, you said you might have been interested in this additional product, so let's talk about that. That's mentioned also here in the processes, but the difference there with the previous slide is that was about doing it at scale. So with processes was just about adding it into the process. So instead of having that transactional customer relationship, we looked for that consultative customer outreach. We used the pre-show surveys, post-show surveys, different touch points that we did to get more information from our customers. So that way we could share it with the sales team, who was ultimately responsible for upsell and renewals. But they weren't getting that information. And so we were making sure that it was used by us, but also shared with the sales team and marketing teams. We went from the static customer portal, couldn't get rid of that, but what we could do is we added a dynamic support portal that had a little bit more searchability and just made it a little bit easier for that self-service for those customers that did want that. And getting into those evolving customer needs, we added onboarding webinars, we added on-site touch points, we added the pre-show surveys and try to do as much at scale. We added one-on-one bookings availability for our top customers, trying to do everything we can to make sure that it wasn't bogging our sales teams down, but or our customer success team down, but it was elevating the service they were getting. So what did we see? Almost immediately, we saw a reduced email response time, which is great. That actually is probably because it's a couple of things. It was the automations, but it was also because we just got less emails. They were able to find the resources they need a little bit better. And we had less on-site issues. So when you get on-site, it's a little bit harder to manage everything. It takes a little more time because everyone can actually see you there. You can't plan it as much as possible. So we got ahead of it as best as possible. We gave that ownership back to the team member and had them working on, whenever we went and looked out, they're like, oh yeah, I got everything I need. This is great. It's cool. We also saw improved CSAT scores. I am in the camp, as everyone else is, that CSAT scores are not always the best indicator for customer success. But everybody likes to see metrics, and so if it's a good score, Might as well use it. What we also saw is employee retention. I've luckily not had to hire too many people recently. So we saw higher employee engagement. We saw more employee empowerment. They were partnering with their internal stakeholders, they were partnering with their customers, and they just felt better in their role and that they could do more, that they weren't just being told what to do, that they could actually be, they could innovate here, and that's what comes next. It was that culture of success, culture of innovation, that they could come up, because while I set a bar that we should be innovative and we should be, doing our processes and rethinking them, they had the specific relationships with customers. They had the specific relationships with their internal teams. They're the ones that truly needed to get the buy-in from them to create these specific processes that they needed to innovate on. And so we did actually see that. So what did we learn? Defining the team culture and aligning the team members to it creates the empowered employees. When I talk about the innovation that they were able to do, it wasn't like it wasn't a tangential line. It was, it was very much aligned with what we were doing, and so they knew what to do. They didn't have to come and ask and see if this is okay. They just got to do the work, and they're very talented professionals, and they know what they're doing. And if you have KPIs or culture that's confusing, they're not going to be able to know what to do next. So having that aligned, defined, and just getting their buy-in was very important, actually the foundation of all this change. We empowered employees to take ownership of their roles and drive innovation. So that ownership of the role, as I discussed, feeling if they know what they're doing, it's going to drive their own innovation. They're going to start seeing, okay, this is something that's bothering me that I can fix now myself, and I can bring that to the team. Instead of having to ask for permission, they're just going out and innovating. Innovative processes are going to enhance both employee and customer experiences. So the processes, innovating the processes, having more efficient processes are going to help with the customer experience, because they are like the customer's going to have more information, the right information at the right time. They're not going to be waiting on response times as much, but they're also going to get to work with engaged employees. And that's a really big difference. As we talked about earlier, the happy employees are going to create happy customers. And lastly, exceptional customer experiences deliver lasting customer success. So building that customer experience where they have a great experience from the time they re-sign with us to the end of their show cycle, seeing the ROI that they've delivered, being like, that was easy, that was great, let's do it again. That's what's going to create that sustainable growth. And I didn't put this on there, but I would say a fifth thing, for me personally, is that relationships internally really matter. I couldn't have done any of this stuff just on my own. I needed to work through so many team members, internally, externally, and just like evangelize what customer success is and what it can be and why we need it. I mean, that's what we're all doing here and what we're trying to learn, but it was trying to make sure that, customer success wasn't something that was really known within the company. And so they just kind of said, hey, customer support is probably good enough. But, and it is good enough. But if you want to see true value and growth, I think you need to get that success part as we talk about the strategic conversations we have and the partnership opportunities we have with customers. That was something, so that relationship building is very important. And what's next? Continue to use AI like all of us. We want to drive that self-service customer onboarding as much as possible. We want to try to funnel questions that come to us, meetings that come to us, to a higher level of impact, that strategic conversation that we're having with customers, rather than the transactional stuff. So using AI to do that through our email bot, through different experiences, portal pathways, those kind of things. Continue to automate those complex processes for our customers. So just instead of saying, hey, email us like something like this, it's through forms, through links, and it's just being smarter with the way we do things. And deliver personalized experiences to all customer levels. One of the things that we need to build out is how we do outreach at a personal level rather than sending generic emails, and that kind of has to do with the technology that we work with. So, so looking for ways to use AI or whatever technology we can in our process to deliver a personalized experience. For the employee experiences, we want to automate our touch points to identify further opportunities. So it's, as everyone kind of talked about with the CS platforms that they use, It's using AI to bring in the story for the customers and identify different touch points that we can have with them. And then builds deeper strategic relationships with our key accounts. So like we don't do QBRs. It doesn't really make sense within our business, but we could do post-show analysis. We could do all these different things. And so using our technologies to bring in the story to make it easier to do that is something we're going to start working on. And I forgot to mention, on the delivering personalized experiences to all customer levels, one thing we have added into it is something that we want to have as a differentiator at most of our shows. And it's something actually very similar to what we're all doing here. So we do these industry shows, and we bring buyers and sellers together. But our customers are event marketers. And so we have started piloting this program within this year. So it's delivering a personalized experience where our event marketers get to do something like this. They get to come to one session. It's just a quick hour of their day. They get lunch, which is pretty nice. And they just get to talk about event marketing stuff. Strategies, problems, those things. And it's something I haven't really seen at a lot of different events, and something that we've gotten some good positive feedback. So just adding that extra experience of like, we do care about you, event marketers, and we are going to try to make you successful, and we're going to try to make you better at your role by introducing you and offering these things. That's it.
Thank you, Patrick, for that. We have time for some questions, so please get some Slidos in. The takeaway I got from that was this whole idea of going from reactive to proactive. It doesn't just happen. You have to have a plan to plan it, and you can actually be very intentional with that. So that was my big takeaway from this, so I really appreciate that. So let's have some questions come in. While we're waiting for some of those questions, I have a question for you. You had on there CSAT. You saw I'm just curious, how do you measure CSAT?
Our CSAT, actually, the questions were all about, so we surveyed our customers, and it was actually more of a customer success. How are we doing at our jobs? That was it was customer satisfaction of CS, not so much the actual product.
Okay.
But I felt like that was better at telling us what we could do better in terms of our service.
All right, good. So like a survey type tool is what you ended up using?
Yeah.
Got it. All right. Any questions coming in? We have time for them, or throw them out from the audience here. Right here.
So with the process of change, were those done with addition of other platforms, integrating or purchasing platforms? So you said Freshdesk. Did you purchase other tech stacks to improve that, or did you just improve the process itself?
So what tools and processes did you use?
Yeah, so Freshdesk was the big one, because again, we needed access to data on that side, so that was a really big change there. And then the rest of it, we mostly just used the same tech stack that we were already doing, and it was mostly the processes and building those out. But also, we had access to Microsoft's suite, but we just weren't using stuff. We weren't using bookings. We weren't using their webinar feature. We weren't using their forms feature. So it was just taking what we already had and weren't using before.
Right. Was this transition simultaneous with this customer success organization emerging, or previous support, or how they exist now?
No, customer support doesn't exist anymore. It is a part, and that was actually what was the most difficult thing, was that we couldn't, and I'll just very candidly say, this took a lot of mistakes to get to. I messed up, nothing terrible, but it wasn't, we ran into some roadblocks, and a lot of it was my first thought was, well, let's try to get rid of some of the customer support stuff. But then, weirdly, nobody raised their hand to take that. So then, so I'm like, okay, well, then we need to think smarter, and we need to say, how can we do that stuff quickly to then create this extra value stuff? So customer support is now really rolled up into customer success as a function of the role.
Good.
Well, can I just follow on that? So then, does the customer get confused at all between still trying to do the reactive stuff instead of the strategic part, or have you been able to train up your team enough to take the reactive and turn it into strategic?
I would say it's a work in progress of turning it into the strategic, taking the reactive question. So the proactivity steps we took were the surveys, just trying to get as much out in front of them as possible. But actually, yeah, there's still a really important amount of reactive tickets coming in that are gonna evolve how we are proactive with them. So it's kind of a nice way that way we can own the entire conversation with the customer.
Yeah.
Good. I think this next one we'll keep anonymous because maybe most of us might hear this. Is how do you build an employee culture in an organization that is siloed or maybe even gatekeeps information?
You take a battering ram to it, and you make them communicate with you because you're communicating with them all the time. I mean, that's really all you can do, right? If we want to talk philosophically, you can only control the things that you can do yourself. So if people don't want to, so it's about building those relationships, communicating, over-communicating yourself, not assuming anything, that anybody knows anything. And what you're going to find is that people are also going to be having the same feelings you're having. Yeah, why is nobody talking to each other? So we break through those silos through the relationships that you're building. I go around to all the shows and I build those relationships with people because it's like, hey, we need to be partnering together on this. So there's still a lot of stuff where I'm like, why didn't you tell me? We're just still working through that.
Good one. So what was your approach, or what things did you specifically do to help change the mindset of your CSMs to empower or to take ownership, being proactive?
I think it was about the processes that I implemented were about ownership and controlling their role. I think there was trainings that we ran as well. I started doing this, as I mentioned before, like evangelizing the customer success team a little bit. So I started doing this thing yearly where I would do a year in review to all of the sales leaders or really the brand leaders. And I would say, hey, this is the amount of tickets that we handled. This is the customers. These are the wins. And so it was just about letting them know that we're doing all this work. I mean, like we're constantly working. We're constantly getting dumped on. But look at what we did with it. And so it was just like the approach was just getting the team members, the internal team members they were working with to understand like customer success and not customer support. And then they saw the value from their teams, and then it was just about building them up and celebrating across the team. So it was just this like celebration of cultural excellence.
Good. What about the interaction between sales and CS? Did you change anything in the dynamics between the teams, handoffs, the gaps, anything? How did you resolve that if there was any issues present?
Yeah, it's about really being flexible with the process. It is definitely not an overnight change, and sometimes you have to adapt the process to ultimately get what you want out of the relationship. So in negotiation or I took this course on influence. And in influence, sometimes you let them think they won, but you still got what you want. So, so it was a little bit of that. But, it just depended on the team. Some relationships with sales team members, they go, this is great, I want to do this, is amazing. Yeah, you keep doing it. And so nothing really needed to change. In fact, we took a little bit off their plate, which is actually the ultimate goal, is I wanted my sales team selling. I didn't want them doing account management. And then some still really cling to that their money, their customer, all those things. And so we kind of work through it to say, okay, like you keep doing that, but when you're ready, we're already going to be doing this. There's this relationship we've now built with your customer with you that if you need to step back and want to spend more time on new business, you can.
The next one is, any tips out here for identifying customer touch points, maybe along the customer journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just mapping out what your customer journey looks like, seeing what the process is like understanding your customers. I mean, that's a really like basic thing to think about, but it's also like, what do they want? And at what points in the cycle are they thinking about your product? And so trying to get them, I kind of have this overly used phrase where I'm like, we need to get the right information to the right person at the right time. So that's kind of the same thing. That's the approach I take with the customer touch points is, if I'm emailing them, hey, do you want this? But they're busy, let's say like they're busy proving ROI from a different event or something like that. They don't really care about me yet. It's not 3 months to go. So it's looking at the customer journey and when they're most engaged at that point. So you can use that through like data, through any of the platforms you're using or, kind of whatever.
Good. Maybe we have a quick answer to this and we'll be done with questions. Is what survey questions have you found to be most powerful, most effective in getting insights from your customers when surveying them?
I like the what are your goals, you know, but I don't leave it open-ended. I give them options. When it comes to the post-show survey, each survey question was attributed to a direct aspect to our support that we were offering and the success that we're doing. So, it was just about having intentional questions on that one. For the pre-show one, it's about what do we want? Again, it's just thinking about what action can I take with each question that I'm asking. So, asking like what their goals were and if they had changed or what kind of people they wanted there. Those are pretty successful.
Well, great. Well, thanks for your time, Patrick. That was great.
Thank you.
Great to hear that. And again, great questions from everybody. We're excited for this